At the El Paso County Department of Human Services, our first priority is to protect children. Currently, there are 171 full-time employees in child welfare. The protection process begins with the Child Abuse and Neglect Hotline, where the public makes reports.
Child abuse reporting.
Call takers get the information from whoever's calling, take a report, get as much information from the call taker as possible to identify the needs of the family, any risk factors in the home to the caseworker or the family, and then begin doing a research process, and that includes CPS history within the state of Colorado. It includes benefits history, TANF, food stamps, Medicaid, criminal history, co-courts history, just as much information as possible.
In 2009, El Paso County received 11,114 reports of child abuse or neglect, by far the most in the state. Each weekday, there's a morning meeting called Triage, where supervisors review all the reports and decide as a team if caseworkers need to follow up immediately, in 3 days, in 5 business days, or not at all.
We also make a point to have many people at the table making decisions that are as critical as out-of-home removal of a child. Caseworkers never make those decisions in a vacuum.
In 2009, caseworkers went out and investigated more than 50% of the reports to the hotline. The determination of whether a report will be assigned for investigation is based on the definitions for abuse and neglect outlined in the Colorado Children's Code.
The Colorado Children's Code contains all of the laws and definitions which provide structure for the authority that is given to the department to investigate and then eventually, if necessary, to provide ongoing services.
According to the Children's Code, a caseworker is required to talk to the alleged victim of abuse without the perpetrator, who could be a parent, in the room. Caseworkers do this and talk with the parent or alleged perpetrator as well as anyone else they feel can contribute to the investigation.
If we are able to talk to the kids at school or at a babysitter's house or daycare, then we get a lot more information from them because they feel a lot safer.
Often caseworkers go to the home by themselves. If they're concerned for their safety, they can get an escort, but there is anxiety involved with any home visit.
I went to a home and I was able to speak to the father, and he was the perpetrator in the relationship, and he was okay, he was fine. But then when the mom came down, who was the victim in this instance, she charged at me. She got in my face, she started cussing at me, she was calling me horrible names, and she was telling me that she was going to mess my face up.
Not only do caseworkers have to effectively handle extremely volatile situations, but they're exposed to some of the most disgusting living conditions in our community.
And there are homes where it's a serious safety concern, where there could be human or animal feces everywhere. There's almost like hoarding type of behaviors where there will just be piles and piles of things.
Depending on what the caseworker discovers on their initial assessment of the report, there are several possible outcomes. 1, no evidence of abuse or neglect were found, but the caseworker may refer the family to community partners like mental health, military, or domestic violence services. 2, open a voluntary case with the family where they agree to some level of services from DHS. 3, get a court order for mandatory services and provide a treatment plan for the family. 4, remove the children. Removing children from a home is the last resort.
We have a very extensive risk and safety assessment that is state mandated that we do on all of our investigations. And it would only be after really extensive review of the circumstances and very seasoned consideration that a child would be deemed appropriate for removal from the home.
If it is determined a child needs to be removed from a home for their safety, the caseworker works with a county attorney and receives a court order for removal. An effort is first made to place the child with an appropriate relative or close family friend.
We realized that if a child could go to a familiar family member, that would be so much more comfortable and probably safer for them.
If that doesn't work, the children are placed in foster care. In El Paso County, we contract with 9 child placement agencies who offer foster home placements for the children and casework services for the entire family.
They have capped caseloads. So in other words, they can't go over a certain number of children, and that allows a caseworker to spend a lot more time with that child and their family and and the casework requirements.
El Paso is the only county in Colorado that uses private agencies for placement and casework. An average of 549 children are in foster or kinship care on any given day in El Paso County. If possible, the goal is still to return the children to their parents as quickly as is safely possible.
If there's serious abuse, obviously we have to take a closer look at what's going on in the family and maybe take a longer time. But maybe it's substance abuse. Maybe the parents have a drug or alcohol problem. And if they can get into treatment and get in quickly and complete the treatment, then that shortens the time.
When children are removed from parental custody, supervised visits are often part of a family's plan. And many of those take place at the Family Visitation Center run by the Department of Human Services.
Our job is really to mentor, educate, model, advocate, really help parents change their parenting behavior and improve them so that they are able to provide a safe place for their children.
If families successfully follow their treatment plan and it is deemed safe for the children to be returned home, that will occur. If it is determined parental rights should be terminated, the children are then available for adoption.
You know, we take termination of parental rights very seriously, and so it's the last resort.
But it's not just children in our community that need protection. The Department of Human Services is also responsible for investigating allegations of abuse and neglect of at-risk adults who are 18 or older.
Adult Protection accepts referrals for investigation of abuse, neglect, self-neglect, and exploitation of at-risk adults who are 18 and older.
In 2009 in El Paso County, there were 1,297 reports made to Adult Protection.
Most common is probably self-neglect, and I would say some financial exploitation is on the rise because of the economy.
And the reports of abuse and neglect could increase as the population of those 60 and older is dramatically increasing in El Paso County. 2000
was about 49,000 people. This year it's close to 80,000. And then within 20 years, it's supposed to be about 180,000 folks.
At the Department of Human Services, we count on the public to be our eyes and ears in the community and greatly appreciate calls to our hotline if you see something that does not look right. If you suspect child abuse or neglect, please call our hotline at 444-5700. If you suspect abuse or neglect of an at-risk adult, please call 444-5755. As a reporter, your identity is always confidential.